Hello, my name's Nick Royce and I'm an apprentice of the Worshipful Company of Chartered Architects. I've been involved with the company for over 4 years. I was introduced to the company by a family friend and my mentor is Chris Williamson of Weston Williamson and Partners, which is where I worked during my Part 1 year out. I've been passionate about architecture for as long as I can remember. When I was little, I loved drawing plans of houses on scrap pieces of paper, and my mother suggested that I become an architect. I must have been only about 8 or 9 at the time, but when I found out what an architect was, I was very excited. After leaving school, I studied architecture at the University of Edinburgh. I absolutely loved my time there, and I couldn't recommend it enough. As well as being a fantastic city to live in, and somewhere that I'd like to live again one day, I thoroughly enjoyed the course at Asala. I liked the way that the course was split between the University of Edinburgh School of Humanities and the Edinburgh College of Art. This combined the academic rigour of the university with the creative atmosphere of the College of Art. During my time at Edinburgh, I wrote a dissertation titled A Man's World, Problem Solved. Has contemporary architecture addressed the concerns of 20th century feminist architectural theorists? I also had the opportunity to learn glassblowing, video editing, and even painting with my feet. I became passionate about model making, which I used extensively in my academic career. I studied my MArch at the Manchester School of Architecture. I chose this school as it was a joint venture between the University of Manchester and the Manchester School of Art, which was a similar structure to Asala. Whilst I was at MSA, I was part of Atelier Urban Spatial Experimentation, or USE, and I was inspired by tutors Karsten Hunnick and David Connor. In USE, each student is encouraged to form an individual concept based on a thorough site analysis. The projects follow a personal narrative that is born out of the site's history and its inherent potential, and which then transforms into a spatial strategy which is developed through all the design stages. The atelier explores the boundaries of architectural practice and utilises the techniques and working methods of other creative disciplines, in particular fine art. During my time in USC, I designed projects such as a rehabilitation through the Arts Centre in Berlin and Memento Mori, a crematorium and vast columbarium skyscraper in London. My thesis project, titled The Fourth Wall, was Berlin's Ringbahn's 2-year-long, sequentially constructed, multicultural, performing arts festival with a meaningful legacy designed to adapt and last. Model making was a very important part of this project. I experimented with moving models and motors, paper, lighting, casting, 3D printing and laser cutting, to name but a few. For my degree show, I designed and constructed a large-scale, interactive moving model, and I was awarded the B15 Simpson Hoff Award for Outstanding Model Making. Whilst at MSA, I also wrote a dissertation titled Intentionality versus Experience. To what extent do architects design visitor experience at Holocaust memorials? I'm currently studying for my Part 3 at the University of Westminster, and if all goes well, I'll be an architect by the end of 2021, which is a very exciting prospect indeed. During my Part 1 year out, I worked at Weston Williamson and Partners, where I was part of a team led by Raffaella Rospo, designing Paddington Crossrail Station. I was so excited to work in a large, thriving, social practice after so long of wanting to work in the profession. I look forward to visiting Paddington once the Elizabeth line is open. As a Part 1, I also worked at Charcoal Blue Theatre Consultants. I found this job by chance when a friend of mine who knew that I was passionate about theatre told me they'd seen CB's office round the corner. I didn't even know what a theatre consultant was. However, I was excited by the prospect of combining my two passions, theatre and architecture. Whilst working as a theatre design intern, I worked on projects in the UK, America and Singapore. I still don't think that my friends and family actually understood that I was designing the theatre buildings themselves and not production sets. I loved working at Charcoal Blue and I learned so much about theatre architecture, which certainly helped me with my thesis and my job today. During my time at university, I also attended a course on set design for theatre at Central St Martin's, and I was the creative director of the Edinburgh University Savoy Opera Group. When I left the MSA, I applied for a job at Howarth Tompkins, which is where I work today. I was keen to work at Howarth Tompkins as they excel in theatre buildings and socially purposeful architecture. I enjoy the way in which HT highlight found surfaces, their thoughtful use of materials, and their emphasis on sustainability. I think Howarth Tompkins spaces are democratic, beautiful, and always have such a buzz. Over the past year and a half, I've worked on projects in America, New Zealand, and the UK, and I've been fortunate enough to work closely with Steve Tompkins and Roger Watts, amongst many others who have all taught me so much. I've just started working on a project for Pembroke College in Cambridge, which involves converting a listed church into a performance and lecture space, as well as building a new foyer and teaching spaces for the college. The project will begin on site shortly, and I will work on it until it's completed in 2022. I thoroughly enjoy my job at Howarth Tompkins, and I look forward to my future at the practice. I've always been interested in public, sociable space, the sort of space that people laugh in, spaces where people are happy, spaces where I personally enjoy spending time with friends and family. Examples include theatre foyers, galleries, museums, hospitality venues, and parks and pavilions. As I've matured and formed my own political and moral opinions, I've become increasingly interested in the accessibility of said spaces, who owns them, their materials and details, their sustainability, and the power of design to influence said characteristics. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I had the opportunity to research these themes further, whilst working with my colleague Tom Gibson on a study analysing one of Howarth Tompkins' current theatre projects in regard to universal access issues and public health. Since then, I've become part of a working group at Howarth Tompkins which aims to examine our past, present and future design work under the twin lens of public health and universal design, and ensure that our built work promotes public health and is designed for a universal demographic. We're interested in gaining a greater understanding of the challenges faced by all body types, such as wheelchair users and ambulant disabled, and people with visual or hearing impairment and developmental disorders such as autism and ADHD. Furthermore, I am passionate about EDI issues, and I'm part of a number of working groups at Howarth Tompkins. These include Addressing Race Inequality, the Social Mobility Think Tank, and the LGBT Equality Focus Group. Being part of these groups has taught me so much, and I also try and develop my understanding of these issues outside of work, and I'm currently reading 2 books, Design Intervention Towards a More Humane Architecture, and Geographies of Sexuality, Theory, Practices and Politics. Since working at Howarth Tompkins, I've learnt a lot about sustainability issues and regenerative design. I'm proud that Howarth Tompkins are signatories of Architects Declare, and I've personally contributed to the practice's efforts by working with HT's Head of Sustainability and Regenerative Design, Diana Dealer, to compile an in-house sustainable materials matrix. Furthermore, we're looking to work with other practices to develop a communal resource. I've been asked to give some advice to anyone who's starting their architectural education now. My main advice is that everyone's going to have different strengths and weaknesses. Some people will be amazing at drawing, Others will be interested in parametric design, and some will be more interested in theory than design itself. Don't compare yourself to anyone. Try absolutely everything once, even if you think you're rubbish, and you will find your strengths and what sets you apart. I would also advise you to enjoy it. It's a long slog, and one that I haven't even finished yet. However, I've had a wonderful time so far, and I really hope that you do too.